Are you thinking about moving to Oregon and the Corvallis area is high on your list? Well, we've moved over 400 families in the Willamette Valley, and we can help you too. We reached out to our clients and friends and said, hey, if you're willing to go on camera and tell your Oregon story, we'll honor your time by donating to a local nonprofit, Jackson Street Youth Services. About 15 of our friends responded enthusiastically, so let's hear what these people have to say about their move here and their life in the area. We'll do our best to show you places on the screen when they're mentioned, and there'll be links in the description below. Hey Dayana, thanks so much for joining us today. You having a good day?
Yeah, I am.
I really appreciate it. Folks, if you're new to this channel, my name is Michael, and I have a real estate team based out of Corvallis, Oregon, but we help people buy and sell homes and move to the whole mid-Willamette Valley area. And so if we can be a resource for you, give us a buzz. Contact info's at the end. So Dayana, you're taking your time today to talk to us about your life in Oregon, which I really appreciate because you've got a wonderful story here. If I recall correctly, you were one of our first people that we moved here towards the beginning of that whole global health crisis around 2020.
Yeah,
right?
I think I was one of your first.
I distinctly remember like buying cameras to do virtual showings while I was helping you guys actually make this happen.
Yeah, I think we were one of your first sight unseen through this camera situation during that period of time.
Yes, so luckily it doesn't have to be sight unseen moves now,
yeah.
But I think this will be a great resource for people who are thinking about moving to this area to hear your story and see themselves in it, so thank you again. So let's dive in. So where did you move here from, and why did you decide that you were making a move? I mean, what did your story look like at that stage?
Yeah, so I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'd lived there my whole life. My husband had moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, and we both worked in tech. And during that time, we were both working remote. We were losing our housing. There was a lot of housing instability, not because we had done anything wrong, but because our landlord needed to sell her house.
That's right, yeah.
And she gave us a great timeline. She said, please move out when you can, please find another place to live and move out so that I can sell my house.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, give us some time, we need to find another place to live. It was so extraordinarily hard to find a place to live in the Bay Area. And we thought long and hard about what it was that we wanted out of life.
Gotcha.
And we thought about how difficult it was to find housing, how we were going to be house poor in that market, and how we didn't feel like we were living the life that we wanted. We were living the life that the jobs that we had were dictating for us. And with remote work being more available, we thought maybe we could start living the life that we wanted more. And so we started looking at what it is that we wanted out of life. And moving out of the Bay Area and somewhere different, somewhere just like here, it turns out, is exactly what we were looking for.
So what were some of the other areas that you were comparing the Mid-Valley to? Were there others that were on the radar?
So we were looking all over the country. We started off our search looking throughout the country. I wrote a list of our 27 criteria.
Was it a list or a spreadsheet?
It was a spreadsheet. It started off as a list, and then we created a spreadsheet. It was a ranked choice spreadsheet based on our collective criteria of what we were looking for out of our community, out of our home, and out of our space. And when I say space, that's kind of ebbs and flows as to what you mean. And so we had a specific set of criteria, and there were a few places out in New Hampshire that we thought about. There were a few places in North Carolina. We discussed Austin for a hot minute.
Sure.
There were a few places in Georgia that we talked about. Kansas City came up, and there were a few other places in the Pacific Northwest that came up. But ultimately, You
chose the Mid-Valley.
Or
at least this is where you ended up.
Yes. Do you want me to dig into that a little bit more?
Totally, yeah. Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, yeah.
So we looked at the list of criteria of everything that we were looking for, and we wanted to be close enough to family or friends. We wanted to have a community that aligned well with our values. We wanted to have a community that had some of the resources and amenities that we were really interested in maintaining or getting. We wanted to have a feel in our community that we were either accustomed to or searching for. We wanted to have that country setting while still having all of the luxuries of having a city at our fingertips. The Mid-Valley and the Corvallis area checked all of our boxes, basically. And it was the only place in the country that we felt really checked every box.
Wow. And of course, paradise is subjective. The intention here is obviously not to say anything bad about any of the other places. It's just to share the story.
Yeah, New York City is the perfect place for some people, and Fielden, Kansas is the other perfect place for someone else. And I feel like this turned out to be the perfect place for me.
Nice. And come to think of it, I'm remembering now when we were looking at homes, we were looking at a lot of places that were more, quiet, rural, but had very almost instant access to the city. And I would say you have a good compromise in that regard too. We're not going to give your address or anything, internet privacy, right? But yeah, you've got the ability to have the best of both worlds, and you achieved that.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to find kind of the perfect home.
Nice. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about the home buying experience, because this was your guys' first home as well.
Yeah.
And it was done during the pandemic, which isn't the point that I think people can relate to, but it was done virtually. Do you feel like you were crazy to buy a house through a Zoom call? Like, what was that experience like for you?
In hindsight, sometimes I feel like that was maybe one of the riskiest things I've ever done. I'm a fairly risk-averse person.
Okay.
And buying the most expensive thing I've ever bought without looking at it first. I don't buy a T-shirt without
contemplating it. And
and once in a while I'll buy something on the internet, but I've got to check that return policy first.
Yeah.
And so that does feel like maybe one of the riskier choices I've made in my life, but at the same time, it also felt like the right and appropriate choice for the circumstances of my life at the time. The home buying experience was really quite easy overall, though, in that we toured the videos and we toured live with you. Then you provided us with those videos so we could actually get a second tour. And that was really nice because we were able to watch the tour multiple times and really think about it. And so we had the chance to sleep on it, even though we didn't really want to spend too much time sleeping in that hot market.
It was a very fast-paced, competitive market. It's cooled down since then to be a lot more manageable, which is fine. Yeah. So come to think of it, when you were buying, we literally didn't meet in person at any point in that process. I don't even think I met you in person when you got keys to the house.
No, you left the keys in a lockbox.
I left keys in a lockbox and then you showed up. Yeah. We met some day later. So it doesn't work that way now. I should say it doesn't have to work that way now.
Yeah.
So often.
We were just discussing a few minutes ago that this is the first time I've ever been to this office.
And I've known you guys for 4 years, something like that. Hey, welcome to the office.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's very fancy. We've got a mini fridge and a bathroom and everything. So a lot of our, I guess we would call them virtual clients these days. We do the same sort of stuff, but often people will, do all these virtual tours with us, and then they'll usually fly out for like the home inspection, that sort of thing. That wasn't really something that was going to happen at the beginning of when we were all working together.
Yeah.
Okay, so that did work out okay, and probably adds a different layer of stress, but also adds a different layer of accessibility to be house hunting from a far away place.
It felt very accessible, considering that we didn't feel comfortable traveling at that time. It felt very accessible to have all of the videos and have everything. And you would go to you went to the home inspection setup and you walked us through everything. And we had so much contact that it didn't feel like I was divorced from the situation at all. It felt like a completely appropriate level of contact.
Good.
And so, it was very easy to walk through that first time home buying experience. And it wasn't our first time house shopping. We'd been house shopping in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And I had worked in real estate many years prior.
Am I completely forgetting that? Were you on the loan side of things?
I worked in escrow coordination.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure I knew that at some point.
We talked about it
just
long
didn't stay.
ago.
Yeah.
I was an escrow coordinator back in my late teens, 18, 19 years old, back in the bad old days of 2005 to 2007, 2008, 2009, right around then.
Yep.
I was working at a real estate office, and so I had some experience with real estate, which I think may have also been a little helpful, and I had some home shopping experience. I just had never had an accepted offer.
Gotcha. Let's talk a little bit more about the location and not necessarily the process. So we help people buy and sell homes all over the mid-Willamette Valley, right? Corvallis, Albany, Philomath, Lebanon, Sweet Home, Monroe, Independence, whole area. What we like to talk about is how it's not necessarily just about Corvallis living, but it's about Mid-Valley living. And that's one of the things that I feel like we've almost had to like low-key battle against with the channel, because the channel started off being all these videos about Corvallis, because I live here and the office is here. And then people are like, well, can you help us buy a house right there? And we're like, yeah, we're there on a daily basis, sometimes twice. So what's it been like for you to get settled into the area in general? And feel free to talk as vague or specific as you want about where we ended up helping you buy your home.
Yeah, so we ended up, first started off thinking Corvallis was really the right place for us.
Okay.
And then we decided to widen our search a little bit to be Corvallis and Albany. And I'm really grateful that we did, because we ended up buying in Albany. It was a little bit more affordable, and it was a little bit more accessible to some of the areas and things that we ended up using and doing more on a daily basis.
Sure.
But it gives us such great access to Corvallis. I live in a part of Albany that is just a stone's throw from downtown Albany, which is lovely. I can ride my bicycle to downtown Albany and get access to that downtown area. It's such a nice, cohesive downtown. It's small enough that I can walk it in a very short period of time, but it's big enough that it's got a little bit of everything. And then I can also, within a very short period of time, make it to Corvallis from the neighborhood that I'm in the sort of the northern Albany area.
North Albany.
North Albany. I'm able to make it to Corvallis in an incredibly short period of time and get access to this college town, college vibe, and the amenities and the excellent restaurants and the cultural experience that Corvallis sort of provides. I also spend a lot of time in Lebanon. I've made some really great friends out in the Lebanon area. So I'm there all the time. And I feel like living in Albany has been great for me being able to make friends out in that area. Corvallis is equally close in many ways, but it's allowed me to spend a lot of time sort of going back and forth between these different areas.
Absolutely.
I have great friends that I do fitness with out there. I have great friends that I go to this lovely bakery out there with. And it's so nice to have these different communities that are so close together, even though there's a little bit of distance.
And that's something that's hard to understand when you just look at the map if you've not been here, right? You've got Corvallis, Albany, and the other towns, and it's hard to really get an understanding of the scale, because the boundaries of those communities are very tight on the map, right? Here it is, and then there's farm fields. But for example, living in North Albany, you've got what we now refer to as dual citizenship. I don't think we had that verbiage when we first started working together, when we connected, but Noelle came up with that, if I recall, and she's like, yeah, you got dual citizenship. North Albany, easy access to both downtowns. It's just, you're right there for everything. I was like, oh, that's perfect. I love that. So we say that all the time now.
Yeah.
But I think you predated Noelle and I even knowing each other in the first place, actually.
Yes,
Okay.
I think so. But yeah, it definitely feels that way. I get all the benefits of living in Albany, which is a city that has a lot of those amenities of like a Costco.
Sure.
And I like to define it as a city with a Costco. Is that, if you frame it that way, it's really easy for me to, a city with a Costco and a big old Walmart. And it's kind of that kind of city. And then I like to say that Corvallis, when I'm describing it to my friends and family that haven't been here, is in essence the college town culturally. It's got, a lot of different kinds of restaurants and different kinds of experiences and lots of different bookstores, and it's just got a little bit more of that vibe to it. And I get to have the benefits of Benton County, and I get to have the benefits of Albany.
Absolutely.
And it's really a great crossover.
Now, had you traveled here to see the area before you moved here at all?
Yeah, so
That did happen?
I had been to Oregon once. One of my very good friends lives out in Eugene.
Okay.
And I came out to visit her in 2018, and I vividly recall her and I driving up to Portland and stopping here.
Okay.
And saying, this feels like somewhere I could really live. And my husband, on a separate trip, had also stopped in Oregon and thought to himself, man, this is a place I could really live.
What about it gave you that vibe? Because sometimes it's hard to really put a finger on it. I mean, there's so much that's intangible about feeling at home. But is there anything you can describe that you can recall?
So There are a few ways that I've described it, but I'm going to try to describe something that I've noticed about the people of Oregon.
Sure.
That might sound mean to the rest of the people in the world. But in some parts of the country, in some parts of the world, there's a culture of kind, but not necessarily very nice.
Okay.
You might get a flat tire on the side of the road, and someone will pull over and tell you you're a little dumb while they help you change your tire.
Okay. That's not what I thought you were going to say.
That person
Okay.
is very kind. In other parts of the country, people are very nice, but not necessarily very kind. You'll get a flat tire, you will change your own tire because no one will pull over. Then you will tell someone how miserable it was to change that tire in the rain, and they will listen to you with kindness and with sweetness.
Sure.
They are very nice, but maybe not the most kind. In Oregon, most people seem to be both.
That's so interesting. And I love the way you describe that. Okay.
And it feels like someone will both pull over and help you change your tire, and they will be kind to you while they do it.
Gotcha. I love that. Wow. You mentioned changing a tire in the rain, which is a really good segue, because I just want to be here and just like bask in awe of just how amazing my fellow local citizens are from what you said. But my face is a little cramp if I just sit here and smile for 5 more minutes. Changing a tire in the rain. All right, you moved here from, it was Southern California?
San Francisco Bay Area.
San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with geography. I still use GPS to get around Corvallis. What's the weather like for you here? Because as I said before, paradise is subjective. I'm loving living here. Has it been a huge adjustment for you in that regard? Is that challenging?
It's both been an adjustment, and I love it.
Okay.
There's seasons here.
Okay.
There's true and proper seasons. Now, we don't have massive amounts of snow, and we don't have massive amounts of sleet, and we do have what seems to be an annual ice storm that sort of shuts down the whole state for like a day. But you know, we get the light sprinkle of snow that makes you feel warm and fuzzy, like you need to have hot cocoa and a good book next to the fire.
Yes.
A couple times a year. you know, and we've got plenty of rain and mud season galore, and we do have the hot and slightly muggy summers, but those are just a few of the days and of the rough days, and the rest of it is we have these beautiful springs where it's just every flower you've ever thought of blooms, and then in the summertime, my garden grows better than I ever could have imagined. And in the fall, the colors are lovely, and the fall garden does great.
Yeah.
And the smells are lovely and crisp, and the air gets cold and chilly in a way that I never really enjoyed living in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the winters do get cold for someone who didn't really experience it getting below 45 on a regular basis.
Okay.
But it's never harsh. My husband's from New England. And one of the reasons we chose not to move to New England is because he said, I don't think that you'll enjoy surviving the winters. We don't survive the winters, we enjoy them.
That's such a great distinction. And you know, Ray, I'm sure she's said this in your presence before, but my wife, who grew up in far northern Maine, likes to say about this area that you don't have to shovel the rain. Yeah, that's a very big difference. I like to reference the reputation that the Pacific Northwest has of being just like really gray and dreary. I don't feel like it's bad. Do you think it's the sort of thing that's challenging for people, or is it just not as bad as the reputation?
I'm going to not quote Mark Twain because I don't think he actually said this, but the coldest winter he ever lived was a summer in San Francisco. So it is pretty overcast where I'm from.
Okay.
But I will say that vitamin D supplements do a great thing for this slightly more overcast for those of us who have moved here from somewhere more sunny.
Gotcha.
But I also love the rain. And I love that it's a little rainier here than it was where I'm from, but it's not so rainy that it's dreary. I wouldn't call this dreary weather.
That's really interesting. The person that we got to do this with right before you arrived today said the same thing. They love the rain. I don't love the rain, and I still love living here.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rain is one of the 27 things that drew me here.
I mean, I guess for me, I'd be fine if it was just like overcast a lot without the rain. I don't need the rain. I just don't want lots of sun.
Yeah.
So, cool. But again, paradise is subjective. What are some of your favorite things to go do? When you're not working, what do you like to do in your free time? Like hiking, restaurants, farmers markets? What are some of those things that should be on people's list for everyday life?
So you just named them, I think, in order.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to take away the fun.
No, it's great. Either you know me well or you know the people that want to move here well.
I think that might be one and the same at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's amazing hikes around here, and I've got a couple of my favorite hikes or nature walks.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on who I'm going with and what the weather looks like, I will go to a different hike, depending on the season, etc. I think there's a book that has 53 wonderful hikes within the city limits of Corvallis.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I gotta find this. Okay.
I think it's called Corvallis Hikes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's plenty of hiking trails that you can go to on a whim. Mm-hmm. And then there's lots of wonderful places within an hour's drive or 2 hours drive. So that's probably my favorite thing to do outdoors.
Okay.
I really enjoy going to lots of great restaurants. It was a little bit difficult coming from somewhere that's such a foodie place to find
sure.
the real foodie places here, but I've found them and it's been an adventure. It's been a fun adventure to find the really good restaurants.
Do you have any that you're happy to give a shout out to and put specifically on people's radars?
You're putting me on the spot. I'm having a really hard time. There's a Syrian restaurant.
Yes.
Just down the road. I've forgotten its name.
We'll put it on the screen. Yes.
Incredible. It is unbelievable. And then in Lebanon, there's a place called Hazelas, mm-hmm. or I'm saying it wrong, Hazalas. Mm-hmm. They're a bakery. I go there at least once a week.
Nice.
Unbelievable food. And then I'm trying to pull something out for Albany. In Albany, I think that one of my favorite places is there's a little Thai restaurant in downtown Albany.
Love good Thai food around here. Yeah.
That Thai restaurant is incredible. The service is wonderful. The ambiance is great. It's never too crowded.
I feel like I've been there before with Ray, and like minutes before they closed, and they still welcomed us in. We had a lovely meal.
Yeah. There's a new Indian place in North Albany. We went there.
Yeah.
Actually spicy. So good. I loved it.
It is right next to Momiji in the Hickory Station area. Haven't been there yet. Yeah.
It was so good. That's one of the things that I've struggled a little bit with, was finding really good, authentic Indian food. We found a couple of really good places.
Okay.
But one place opened up right in our neighborhood, and I was like, well, that's it.
They nailed it. They did it right.
They're really good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mexican food, I feel like we had a similar conversation about it at some point way back when, because you've got such good and authentic Mexican food in the Bay Area, and so you really have very appropriately high standards.
I'm also Mexican.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah.
Your mother's Mexican?
My mother's Mexican. Yeah. And so I've got really high standards.
Yes.
Coming from the San Francisco Bay Area, where Mexican food is the bomb, and having a Mexican mother, there was definitely, that was one of the biggest challenges, was making sure that I found Mexican American food places, you've got them. And they're good. They're really good. But finding some authentic Mexican food, El Guajolotito in Albany is chef's kiss. Incredible.
Could you say that one more time for me?
El Guajolotito.
Okay. We'll put it on the screen.
It's very good.
Nice.
It's right next to the Mexican bakery.
Mexican bakery?
There's a Mexican bakery.
I need to get out more. Love it.
Yeah.
So what are some fun things that you would do with like a friend or a family member who was visiting, for example? If they were here for like a long weekend or a week, what would you do to show off your lovely new home base to them?
Well, fortunately, I've had lots of people visit, and so I've gotten lots of practice doing this.
Okay.
And for the most part, I take them out, depending on the person. It really depends a lot on the person. But for somebody that's very ambulatory and ready to go out on some hikes, I take them out on a couple of the really close by hikes, like the Arboretum, Bald Hill, these little close by parks that are just stunningly beautiful.
Sure.
There's a couple of other places I'm forgetting the names of that I can drive to them. I just don't know their names.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of further places. There's one out by Sweet Home in Lebanon that has these two splendid waterfalls. And I love taking people to Sisters and Newport because they're only a little over an hour from my house in either direction.
Very centrally located. Yeah.
It's very nice. And then I will pop people, maybe depending on the person, if they're more city people, we're going to pop up to Portland or Eugene or maybe Salem, depending on what their interests are. Take them out to some nice restaurants. I love going to McMinimans and just showing them how much Oregonians love tater tots.
Oh, I do enjoy their Cajun tots there, right?
They're so
Specifically?
good.
Yeah.
I never discovered tater tots until I moved to Oregon.
You're now officially an Oregonian.
I'm
you go.
Obsessed with tater tots now.
They stamped your passport when you had that first tot.
So good.
Nice. And McMinimans, if you're not familiar with the area yet, and please help me out here. This is like a family business, maybe a couple of brothers, the McMiniman brothers or something.
I think so.
And they started making all these like restaurants, breweries, but they also buy like these large like old schoolhouses, former churches, turn them into like hotels, restaurants, event venues, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they buy historic buildings and then they semi-restore them, but they also turn them into these restaurants and hotels.
Yeah.
And we've been traveling around the state, going to a bunch of them, and they have a passport you can get.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
okay.
There's a passport you can get, and you can stamp the passport. And if you go to all of them, you get some sort of prize. I don't know what it is. My very good friends that live up in Beaverton have been doing it, and they're getting there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it is actually possible that the joke I made off the cuff about having like a tater tot passport stamp could be a
They
real
actually
thing.
have a passport.
Love it. Okay.
They have the McMiniman's passport.
And so locally right here, let's see, we've got two McMinimans.
Mm-hmm.
We have one in downtown Corvallis that's just kind of vaguely up the street from the office, and then we've got one on campus.
Yeah.
And neither of them are like hotel venues, they're restaurant brew pubs.
One of them is inside of a building that is not historic at all. And the other one is in a historic building that's beautiful.
Is that the downtown one? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, downtown one. It's kind of a Bavarian feel to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll put a picture on the screen. I think we gave them a solid shout out as part of the Beer Vallis video that we did way back when.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very fun. All right, so we were talking a little bit about some of the fun things that you do with like your friends and family when they visit you. What would be some things that would be neat to put on people's radar for when they're visiting to do, let's say, a reconnaissance trip, thinking about moving here?
Well, what I would recommend to anyone moving to anywhere is think about what you want your life to look like. And then go visit the things that are important to you to see if you like them. And so I really wanted to be able to go to the farmer's market. And so if I was doing this all over again today,
Sure.
something important that I would do is I would try to make sure that I made it to a farmer's market. Preferably, I'd go to both the Corvallis and the Albany farmer's market, especially now that I know that they're so different and so wonderful.
Yeah.
The Corvallis one is this huge farmer's market. It feels almost like a festival. There's music and there's artists and there's, lots of flower stands and it's lively and there's lots of, action and movement. And sometimes you look around a little bit and you say, ooh, this is a lot of people. And the Albany one is chill, and there's a couple of strollers and some people with their dogs and, the same calm vendors and the really sweet mushroom lady that will let me talk to her way too long. It's just a very different vibe.
Okay.
But they're both great farmers markets. I'd want to go to both of those. I'd want to check out a couple of hikes because that's what's important to me. Check out a couple of really good coffee shops, and fortunately there are plenty.
And you said, and fortunately, not unfortunately, right?
Fortunately,
Okay.
there are plenty of good coffee shops, and so
Okay.
I would want to check out a couple of good coffee shops. If you are religious, I would say check out the local church that aligns with your religious values to
Yeah.
make sure that it aligns with your religious values.
Connect with them, see if it's a good fit in that regard, that aspect of the community.
Yeah, if you are looking for something specific for your children, go check out what kinds of activities would be important to those children. Like, is there a good gymnastics studio?
Sure.
For me, it was really important that I moved somewhere that had the specific fitness things that I enjoy. There's tap dancing classes here. One of the things that Corvallis did not check off my list was there was no ice skate rink.
Gotcha.
And so the closest ones are in Eugene and Portland.
Yeah, a friend of mine used to play hockey before he moved to Vermont, and I think he used to go down to Eugene for that.
Yeah, but that was a compromise I was happy to make. In Eugene, not that far.
Okay.
I've got friends down there, so I can double dip on the friendship and ice skating.
Nice.
And so there, there's lots of different things. Just think about what your values are and what you want your day-to-day life to be, and then go check those things out.
And I feel like I'm going to be just repeating you for a moment here, but I just want to emphasize the distinction that you're really getting at there. You're saying for people who are thinking about doing a reconnaissance trip to really go check out the things that they want to have in their daily living, not necessarily just, be a tourist and go to XYZ. Those are very different trips, and that's the distinction you're making.
Yeah, I did the tourist trip in 2018.
Okay.
And I had a great time being a tourist. But when I was doing my online reconnaissance and Googling the heck out of here,
Sure.
something that was really important to me was figuring out, does this place have the amenities and the things that are going to fit my desires for my daily life?
I love that. I think that's very impactful.
Yeah.
Was there a moment for you when it really felt like home after getting here? Was there a time that you can think of where you were like, yes, we did it, we've made the right decision?
It's funny. I got here, we got into our house, we sort of settled in, and within a few weeks, I recognized that this had felt like the home I'd never known was waiting for me all along.
Interesting. After a few weeks?
After a few weeks,
Okay.
because it was the life that I dreamed of living. It was the little farm with the trees and the flowers and the plants that I dreamed of living all along. But I think part of that was that my mother had come with me when we were first moving in to help us get settled into the house, clean up, unpack boxes. And that time period, once she had, right after she had left, it really dawned on me that like my mother had helped me make home.
Gotcha.
And it's dawned on me over and over again that it's felt like home. Every time that I've made new friends, every time that I've met new people that have really clicked with me, more and more just felt like this was the place that I was always meant to be.
I'm very glad to hear that, but I love hearing that. And I'm quite surprised that it felt so good so quickly, especially considering the stressful time that we were in when you moved here.
I think maybe the stressful time that we were in also helped with that, in that it was just, the world was on fire. So moving to the forest felt like the right thing to do.
You're like, nailed it.
Yeah.
Would you tell us a little bit about your experience being a gardener and like, hobby farmer gardener? Because you've got some space, you've got an awesome garden going. If I recall, you've got chickens too, right? Mm-hmm. What's that been like? Is this a good area for it? What are some of your favorite things to grow? I mean, that's a fun perspective that I can't speak to as much because I don't garden at my own house, even though I did a lot of research and made a video about gardening.
Yeah, so I bought land that wasn't necessarily meant for gardening.
Okay.
The land that I'm on is not farm rich soil or anything like that. So I ended up deciding to build raised beds. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of great gardening soil in the area. There's a lot of great resources. OSU has incredible online resources for exactly how to garden exactly right here.
Like their extension services?
Yeah, and so I just go to their website every time that I'm just like, when should I plant brassicas?
Totally.
And coming from a different zone, a different gardening zone.
Yeah.
So we just changed zones. We're now in 8A instead of 8B. Having just changed gardening zones, there's a lot, and I came from a 9 zone. I plant different plants at different times. I can't plant a lemon tree in the ground because it'll die over the winter. These are all things that I had to learn from OSU.
Right.
But I've really enjoyed being able to plant garlic and actually have it grow.
Garlic's a big thing here.
Yeah,
a lot of different varieties.
It does great here.
Yeah.
You can't grow garlic very easily where I was living because it just doesn't get cold enough.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can if you're a good gardener, but if you're a novice gardener, but it's been wonderful to be able to move somewhere that has the space and the resources and the community where there are other people that are doing the same things. And it's not to say that where I moved from, other people weren't backyard gardening, but being able to say, oh yeah, I've got a 1/4 acre garden, and people saying, oh, that's a nice little garden is wonderful.
Gotcha. It is a big thing here, and I'm being overly self-deprecating as I say I don't know anything about it, but I feel like such an important part of being in this area, even though I don't get to tap into it as much as I'd like to, because I just need to spend more time outside. So I appreciate you speaking to that.
Yeah.
And the OSU extension, great resources there. Have you connected, or do you think you ever will connect with any of the master gardening groups? Do you think you'll end up doing that kind of stuff?
I've seriously thought about it, and I've looked into it, especially because a lot of I own some forested land as well, and so I really need to learn more about how to better care for the forested land. I've spent a lot of time reading their resources, but connecting with the community I think would be really helpful. I think that I have made a few connections. I've met a few people at the farmers market because the OSU extension does go to the farmers market.
They have a booth?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so they provide a lot of resources. And so that's been a great way to sort of meet people. And so, I think that eventually I might end up joining. The word master gardener might be a little intimidating for me.
Fair enough. Didn't mean to set the bar too high on that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy how you're talking about some of these connections you made with people too. Something that we've heard occasionally is that it can be hard to connect with people if you're not moving in for something related to the university. It sounds like you've had a pretty good experience though, being able to connect with people and establish some friendships and build that community. Am I speaking accurately in that regard?
Yeah, I've met people through a variety of different methods, some of them very organic and some of them incredibly intentional. But one of my closest friends I actually met at an event that you threw.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah.
Sure.
You know who I'm talking about.
I love that we get to help make those connections. If you've seen our other YouTube channel, we have a whole separate channel full of client reviews and testimonials, most of which are from our client appreciation events. And it is neat thinking that people meet each other there and make connections. That's awesome.
Yeah. I've made a couple of friends from there, and one of them is one of my closest friends.
Love it.
And I've met other people through, today actually, I just met a woman after yoga, and we exchanged phone numbers, and I'm hoping to, further that friendship.
Good.
And so there's some very organic, there's some very intentional meeting people, resources that I've used. It's what kind of intentionality you put behind it, and how resourceful you're willing to be when it comes to finding those friends.
Yeah.
I'm also an extrovert, so it does come a little bit more naturally to me.
I feel like other people have told me specifically about things like I think it's an app called Meetup where you could be like, let's all go for a hike together, or some of the, I don't know if intramural sports is the right thing, but like Frisbee teams. So taking advantage of ways to connect and foster relationships. So that's worked out okay.
Yeah, I've met people through the gym as well, and
nice. Love it. I mean, this is good. I'm glad that we were able to connect and do this. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you feel like would be good advice for people, in the position of thinking about moving here, or anything that you would do differently in hindsight now that you've been here for a few years?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is if I were to do things differently, maybe buying a house sight unseen is a little risky. But it worked out great. So I don't think I'd do that differently. I would just, be thoughtful. I have some friends that did buy a house sight unseen, and they were a little bit more disappointed than I was.
Were it here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here. Oh, and some friends that live in another town, but like in Oregon. And so had I not had to buy in the middle of a, global crisis, maybe things would have been a little different and I would have come out and visited.
Do those recon trips.
Yeah, I would do the recon trip for sure. But other than that, I don't think I would have done too many things differently. And like I said, it all worked out incredibly well because I ended up in a home and a situation and in a location that I think is ideal. I wouldn't change too much. I would just recommend do those recon trips. Yeah. Go check and see if your community is going to support the lifestyle that you truly want. Spend a lot of time navel gazing. If you're changing locations because of choice and not because of a job change, if you're saying, I want to live somewhere else, really spend a lot of time making sure that this is the place that you want to be, and this is the life that you want to have, and this is the style that you want to have that life, because even the different neighborhoods will provide different lives. Living
lifestyles.
Yeah, different lifestyles. And so living in Corvallis will give you a different feel than living in Albany, than living in Lebanon. And checking out the nuance of those different places will provide you with a different lifestyle.
Yeah, you can't really get a feel for a community based on stats on a Wikipedia page. Those things are helpful and they're important, but they're not going to give you the nuance and the vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we struck gold ending up in the North Albany area, because had we ended up in other parts of the Mid-Valley, maybe we wouldn't have ended up in having that wonderful dual citizenship, as you say.
I'm glad that that's worked out so well.
Yeah, I love it.
And
it's great.
Triple citizenship when you got the McMinimans passport going there too.
I know.
Nice. Well, Dayana, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this, and we certainly hope that it's a helpful resource for our viewer listeners, whatever the case may be here.
Yeah, this was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And folks, if we could ever be a resource for you, don't make it complicated. Just reach out. Give me a call, zip me a text, send us an email. My team and I are never too busy for you here to just help you get a feel for, if this is a place that you'd want to call home. And that's, of course, what we actually do for a living, is help people buy and sell homes. But we're happy to hop on a Zoom call with you and get a conversation started. So thanks so much, and bye for now.